everybody, and welcome to Meditation for Global Healing. What? I'm talking to everybody. Say yes. It's Vanessa and friends here they're very, very silly. I could feel it already, but you know what? So am I. So it's all good. And tired. Oh, I understand. So last week, we were talking about using ritual to connect to the energy source, right? God, love, divine, all that stuff. Hey, it's Katie. Hi, missed you. So I really want to hear about what you've been doing to connect to God and what it feels like. So, of course, I have to turn to my Zoom friends and say, Kristen, Kristen, what have you been, don't give me that finger. What have you been doing to connect? And how does it feel? I miss you too, Katie.
What have I been doing to connect? Well, I've been trying to set aside the same time every day, and that doesn't really work in my life. So I just take whatever time I can do it. And sometimes that's literally after I turn the lights off at night to go to sleep.
Okay.
And I close my eyes, I deal with it there. And sometimes I just close my eyes and turn my computer screens off and do it right in front of the computer.
Okay.
So I can't get away from the computer.
Okay. So
but what I do when I do that is I do have a little set ritual that I do when I do it.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking.
It is, and I like that you said do when I do it a lot of times. So you got that you're doing it. So that's
do what I do when I do.
So good. Yeah, well, ritual, right? We're saying that we're trying to do it, trying to do it at the same time every day. However, that doesn't really matter. The reason we usually try to do for the same time every day is so that we just make sure we do it, right? So that is part of our daily routine. But you're already a person that is doing a lot of mindfulness stuff, so I'm glad that you're able to just kind of add it in, and you know that you're going to do it. So do it. How does it feel when you do?
So if I do it in the middle of my workday, it usually kind of refreshes me to move forward with the rest of the day. So if I take a few minutes out and do it in the middle of my workday, I can actually push out longer if I have to.
Okay.
So I can actually put more time in it, and it's especially important if I'm having any kind of difficulties with work people, because somehow they manage to come into my meditations. The most recent one I told you about today isn't the first one. He's not the first one. He's the second person.
Right.
It's about the fourth time it's happened.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
They show up.
They show up.
But I do a couple of drops of essential oil to start in my diffuser.
Yeah.
Usually I do lavender just to help me relax fast.
Good.
A couple of drops of lavender, or if I don't even have time to do that, I'll just open the bottle and inhale it.
And just smell it. Just sniff it.
That all the time.
Renee,
Obviously,
have you been more purposeful in your ways of connecting?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when I feel overwhelmed and feel like I'm about to burst. Those are my signs to be like, okay, take some time out and
Good.
Connect.
Good. Remember the invitation to connect. I'm glad you're learning something from this. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the validation. Carrie, any differences in how you're feeling when you do it?
Yeah, so I do it before I get out of bed, which is way different. Usually I get to the point where I'm basically screaming at work I need help.
Right.
So it's definitely a lot different. And I do it before I even take my eye mask off.
Perfect. How comforting. Right?
I put my bubble protection around me first, and then I connect, and then it's easier to get going.
Okay, so you can hear them saying a lot of as preventative use, and then sometimes as saving use, right? But also just realizing how much energy you get from that. from doing it, you get a connection. And that's why Kristen's able to so-called push through. That's why Renee is not blowing her top. And that's why Carrie is able to move through her day in, trauma therapy. So this is a big source of ease, of transitioning, of recognizing that God is number one, always. So for me, because I've been doing a lot of just changing around and how I'm doing my psychic readings, how I'm connecting to spirit and stuff like that, it's been really interesting to see how the different practices alter how I'm, how I'm receiving information and how I'm connecting. So sometimes it's so instantaneous, like before I even speak the words, I'll get massive chills and I'm like, okay, you guys are already listening, got it. Like, okay, we're cool. But also a day like today, you guys know I work all day Sundays, and my daughter woke me up at like 5 a.m. and I was just helping her for a long time. So I was already spent before the day began. And then literally as soon as I start working and channeling and connecting to God, I am like, fine. I'm definitely not 100% because I'm still tired, but I'm able to continue and to be fully present. So there's no other explanation than I'm getting energy from some other source, don't you think? So we're always going to come back to certain things like that, and the reminder that instead of disconnecting and feeling like we're going to explode or that we have just lost our minds and nobody's listening to us, that we're going to turn to God presently and actually thank, right? Remember, we're talking about the action of thanking instead of like begging or this kind of pathetic prayer of like, please, oh my God, please help me. It's more of, thank you so much for your presence in my life. Thank you for guiding me through this day with, loving compassion and all those things. It's a different feel to it, and it's more empowering, I think. Katie says, that's how you feel like you're going to explode. Well, you're at the right place, Katie. We're here for you, and you can share any of that, and you can always jump on Zoom and have your voice heard as well. So tonight is going to be a special topic as well. It's about self-forgiveness. Sometimes these thoughts come to me when I'm treating, and I see some clients having similar issues, and this was no exception. I definitely had a couple of new clients that I was like, whoa, we got some big blockages going on here that are not allowing you to move forward in present day. And sometimes they're aware of it and sometimes they're not. So I have to kind of use my abilities to zone in on where things are stuck. So let's start off with something simple, like how can you tell that you might have some some blockages that might be associated with self-inflicted non-forgiveness, we'll call it. How can you tell that? How can you tell if there's a blockage like that? Any ideas, guys, right off the bat? It's a pretty complex question. Well, let's go with blockages, energetic blockages to begin with, right? Anytime there's an energetic blockage, you can have manifestations in the body physically, right? Where there could be pain in the body. You might be waking up at certain times, because even like grief, which we associate with lungs, that's also grieving, right? And that's part of possible not forgiveness and things like that. You could have other illnesses. What about like quick to anger, maybe? That could be one of them, right? Where we just maybe have a trigger that we're not even aware of and suddenly feel very angry. You guys have any ideas before I start like reading something? Sleeplessness, absolutely. What about my counselor?
It's not just about waking up, it's about not being able to fall asleep in the first place.
Yeah, well, those are right. These are heart disturbances, and then figuring out where it's from, right, has something to do with it. Anxiety, yeah. What else?
You can't explain, kind of like anxiety.
Yeah, and things like
uneasiness.
Uneasiness, yeah, and things you can't explain, right?
Unsettled.
Feeling unsettled. Maybe something comes up in somebody else's situation that you suddenly feel very emotional about, right? It reminds you of another time in your life, and that was a big shift, and oh my gosh, and suddenly you start kind of reliving it, right? Katie's saying her mind won't stop going crazy with thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. So self-forgiveness has all of this, but more. I want to just find this one part. There was something cool on Psychology Today. Let's see if I could find it. Of course, I love this first line because I am a firm believer that time is not linear. So it starts off with, life is rarely linear. I'm like, that's right, you are correct. For example, when you try to learn from your mistakes, you recur to the past. You dwell on what you've done, like I have to reflect, and it's hard to move on. Your backwards facing posture, while necessary, can also feel static. You feel guilty if you turn your mind towards the future, even though coping with the future is what you're ruminating on the past, is why you're ruminating on the past. It's so paradoxical. So basically, like, you know, you're trying to move on, but you're thinking about all the stuff from the past, and that comes up, and all the stuff comes into the future. So basically, you're just beating yourself up for things, right? So how do we move on? Now, part of forgiveness, like you'll notice, it could be something as simple as, oh, I promised myself I wouldn't be drinking anymore, you know, even if it's not like you're an alcoholic, just drinking. I promised myself I wouldn't drink anymore. I promised myself I would be losing 10 pounds by so-and-so date. And all these things, all these expectations that we start to wrap into our being of like, this is my expectation of how I'm going to be, ultimately set you up for some sort of something, right? That is probably not going to be such a good thing in the end, because at some point you're going to go, I had a drink, I smoked a cigarette, I ate the box of donuts, you know, like whatever it is. I don't know what you guys are laughing at, but goddamn. The donuts, yes, me too. So this, you know, that beating yourself up is a bigger part of something else that's going on. And so if you're, the diet one is just the easiest one, but if you're on a diet and you have something that's bad for you or whatever it is, how we see it, and instead of just saying, I did this and I'm moving on, you continue with the self-sabotage. You don't stop with it. You just roll into more and more of it until you feel so absolutely disgusting like garbage that you can't possibly live with yourself, right? And now you've ruined your whole day, possibly your week, and possibly more. You okay there, Kristen? Something happened.
Just stabbed myself with a pencil.
Well, there you go. Can you forgive yourself for that? I don't know. So how do we accept ourselves and allow ourselves to move on with that? Because there could be more things in the past. Like I said, sometimes clients, they come in, they don't tell me everything, and sometimes they do for sure. But I can pretty much tell when there's been some sort of abuse, just by their posturing or something psychic comes up or whatnot. And the craziest thing about traumas like this is that even if they've had a ton of counseling, even if they've done all this work, and sometimes unfortunately they haven't had a lot of help or good help, there's some form of nonsensical, I'll call it, emotional disrupt that is still blocking them. And that's in the form of not forgiving themselves, because they start to play the shame into the blame game, and that gets stuck. Major upsets. So we can have, as you can see, we can have something, you know, relatively small where we're like not living up to our own expectations, or we can have these large obstructions that have, you know, basically stayed with us our whole lives or for many years. And your logic brain goes, I know that's not my fault. I didn't ask for that to happen. I didn't do that. I didn't deserve it. But another part of you is still not forgiving it, not forgiving that it happened, not forgiving that you were there. Doesn't really make sense because you didn't deserve it, right? You don't deserve those things. And then you have this process that's really hard to deal with or move on with, but it comes up in your daily life more than you know. Can anybody raise their hands to that or attest to that feeling of like thinking back to something that's like, oh my God, I can't even believe that happened. I should have done this. I could have done that. And it doesn't necessarily have to make any sense, you know, but it's there. So the first thing you have to do is like, let go of this guilt, right? Even if it doesn't make sense, there is a guilt that happens. Let's see. So we don't want self-punishment. We don't want to keep reliving everything. So we have to go into a form of self-compassion and self-forgiveness. So without me going into the little bits and pieces of how a counselor would help you with these part works and things like that, I want you to just simplify it in terms of, you know, if we're thinking that everything is based on love, like God is love, right? This is a very simple saying. God is love. God has the power to forgive me when I can't forgive myself. And also acknowledging that even though you don't logically feel like you need to be forgiven, or you don't logically understand why you would need to be forgiven, that there's a part of a blockage that happens in everyone. Whether it's small or bigger or bigger or bigger. Like, remember the accumulation of grieving? It's the same thing with accumulation of shame or guilt. All these things, they accrue. So acknowledging that happens. And then what do you do with that? How do you transform it? So we turn to reflection, right? And remember, the biggest part of reflection is this non-judgmental place. One of the best things I ever do, and we'll do it in meditation tonight, is actually go to the time that's like really blocking me. And if you don't know what that is, we'll go into part of that too, of how to figure that out. And then drawing up compassion as if it was somebody else that was experiencing it. So taking myself out of the equation, because we tend to have more compassion for others. And then bringing them back in bit by bit and realizing like, wow, I would treat this person so much differently than I've ever treated myself. And then you bring yourself back into it. And something can transform pretty quickly with that. So, if you can think of one thing tonight that you want to just start letting go of, we don't mean forget, we mean letting go of shame, blame, playing this game of what if I had done this, what if I had done that differently, that was so messed up, what if I had, whatever. How can we release that? So that's what we ask for tonight. Do you guys have anything you want to share? You all look very cute and contemplative. I like it. Yeah, okay, Carrie's saying integrate logic mind with our emotion mind, and they can become on opposite ends. So I've been talking a lot about that too, because especially, I was talking with somebody, one of my clients today, who she actually does mortuary work, and so she's very, dealing with the dead all the time, and then very, very worried about a parent of hers that she's afraid to lose. She's so afraid to lose her parent. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're dealing with the dead all the time. You're very conscious of it. So here's that logic portion that wants to tell her that it makes sense, but also she's trying to simplify it, meaning that like, I know I'm just going to see death as like this thing that happened, or this is sad, but it just happened, and like not connect to it. So instead we kind of reshape the situation where she can bring in a ritual for the day, for her work, and actually send love and healing to the family for these things. Because some of them are tragedies, So that invitation to connect just gets stronger. Every time we meet this obstacle, it's just a stronger way for us to connect. So we'll bring that to some forgiveness too, because when the logic portion takes over, it actually can cause some guilt, some shame. And we're kind of stuck with that. So she was actually starting to feel like guilty and shameful at her work, and then bringing it home to her mom, and like so afraid that she was going to lose her. So she just stopped connecting. So she has to forgive herself now for stopping to connect with her own mom. Interesting, right? So like it just happens in so many areas, and we don't realize what's going on or what needs to be done. The other thing I want to mention is that I was teaching my daughter her religious ed work, and the first thing they wrote about forgiveness is like steps of forgiveness. And I love this because the first thing is ask God for forgiveness. The second one was, I know now I might be messing it up. Accept that you've done something, and then turn to the person. So it's like God first, accept this, and then go to the person. And then forgiveness just happens. So I thought that was kind of golden, just like realizing, take it out of your hands, and so to speak, and realize that, you know, God is going to give you that comfort. So, with that being said, okay. So we're going to start our meditation a little bit early. I feel like there might have been something else I wanted to say, but that's all good. So when we're talking about forgiving ourselves, we're really focusing on a couple of main things with energy, right? But let's start with the most obvious. With chakra-wise, girls, what do you think when we say forgiveness or compassion? Thank you, Carrie. So that heart chakra, anahata, very, very waiting, like always waiting and prepared to open up. We may not think about it, but it's like literally, even when you know when your chest gets tight when you're super stressed out and your shoulders go up and everything's like, oh, and no matter what you do, you just can't relax. So the anahata, your heart, is literally just begging and waiting for you to acknowledge its presence, to acknowledge that this connection needs to be drawn upon. And so when you start to do it, and you bring your hands to your heart, like we were talking about the ritual, right? Adding to this to your ritual, just putting your palms over your heart, is really soothing. It can regulate your breathing, like right away. If you think about skin to skin in babies, things like that, right? There's a reason they go right on top of the heart. It's not just the skin that happens. They have the heart rate is regulated through your skin, and now they're right on top of the heart. It's just so calming. So if you can put your hands right on your heart right now. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes, but it's just feeling your heartbeat come up to your palms. You know, once you get that contact, it's immediately relaxing. So we have this beautiful heart. It's so amazing, right? Run by electricity. And how cool is that? And it's running the whole show, so to speak, right? Really in charge of so much. So you can start to close your lights and relax into this. I took away the music because I just feel like I want to just talk to you guys. So you're invited to keep your hands right over your heart, just to make that contact of feeling how the heart meets right into the palms. How the temperature of your hands feels on your skin, on your chest. How the softness or firmness right above your breast or your chest, how it feels. Whether there's tissue there or not, it's got a certain feeling to it. It's like a really nice quality when you can just feel it. And if you've ever had that feeling of holding a baby, especially a newborn, on your chest, you can really remember that at this moment. And if you haven't, maybe you've had a pet that you've had on your chest, or even just a loved one's head. So that's the emotion that we want to contact before we go into any meditation on compassion, or in this case, self-forgiveness. Really want to work on feeling this heart area. And maybe you're noticing that your hands might be changing temperature. Maybe there's some warmth coming to them. So in the chakra, we use the color green, right? You can also use the light pink, like a rose quartz. That's compassion. But we're going to identify a time in our lives that comes up sometimes. Maybe it's when you're a child and something happened, and like I could have done better. I could have somehow gotten out of this. I could have changed it. Maybe it's when you're older. Whatever it is, just whatever comes to mind first is what you're going to focus on just for the next couple of minutes, okay? We're going to go in there and just dive in. Remember, at all times, you are safe. You are secure. We're going into a memory that we're going to give love and light to. So nothing bad is going to happen to you in these moments. In fact, it's the best time to do it because you're with people, so to speak. We're here together. So leaving the situation out, just going back to you at that age, can you see a little Katie, a little Kristen, and so on and so on? Can you see her, him, whatever? Can you see yourself? And now I want you to take this version of yourself into the meditation tonight. So make sure you get to that age, and even if it doesn't necessarily make, remember what I said, logical sense, it just comes up, might feel like a random age, you don't remember anything happening, whatever it is, just bring yourself. And I want you to take their hand and just invite them on this walk together. And notice what you're wearing. Maybe you're dressed the same or similar, or maybe completely opposite. And you're going to walk very slowly onto grass. We'll start onto the grass. So notice we're going into the green first, right? And as we walk onto the green grass, I'm going to make you both barefoot. Now, anytime you feel like your brain starts to play a trick on you or wants to go in another direction, I want you to hold your other self very tightly. Hold that hand nice and tight. Just a sign of reassurance. You know, we're together, we're safe, we're okay. And then you'll take another step. Anytime you've had some resistance come up, you're going to take a deep breath, coordinating with yourself. You're going to find an area in this grass that is full of dandelions. And remember, we're safe and secure, so if you have allergies here, you have none in your meditation. Everything's glorious. So you're going to sit amongst the dandelions and blow some wishes into the air. You're going to take this with your younger version sitting right in front of you, you're face to face, and just enjoy blowing feathery, flowery little dandelion all over the place. Making wishes. And you can start with the what ifs here. So, you know, that what if of like, what if I had done this differently? What if I had done that? You can start with wishes here and you can say, I wish I had done that, and like blow it into the wind. I wish I had done this, and blow it into the wind. And if that younger version has a lot to say, a lot of emotions, absolutely guide them to it. Say, go for it. I want to hear your wishes. Let me know, what do you think we could have done? I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. What do you think? And just really listen to that younger person. Become witness to the breath as you do this. If you feel your younger version getting very animated, don't stop them. Just take a deep breath with them or for them and let them really get it out. Say, yeah, and now mirror them. I want you to say, yeah, I hear you. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. Why did this happen? Why? Just get it all out together now. And if even bigger emotions come out and this blowing them, these wishes in the wind is not enough, then allow your younger self with you to do whatever they need to do. If they need to throw rocks, if they need to scream, you're just going to bear witness to this younger version. So this is the place that you don't realize, or maybe you do, that you're having a blockage at. This younger version has had some experience that is blocking you in their present. So really stay with them. Keep telling them, I'm here for you, I hear you, I know you're upset, and just keep telling them, I'm here, I'm here. And then join in with the emotion. If they're throwing, if they're yelling, whatever it is, go for it with them. I'm taking deep breaths for you. And if something else has come up, if there's something else that you need to shift to real quick, you can allow that version of yourself to change age. You can allow all those things to happen. This is a type of meditation that you can repeat over and over again. And tonight, one might be enough. But if something else happens real fast, don't fight it. Just let it happen. Remember, I'm holding space for you as well. So if you feel out of control, just know that I'm tending to your garden as well. And see if there's space or allowance in there to come back to just doing the gentle wishes. See if you can rein it back in. If not, let it fly. If your younger version seems like they're slowing down with their outburst, outtake, whatever you want to call it, when things are slowing down, then I want you to come back to seated position, mirroring each other, just sitting face to face. And if you feel like you can, you're going to hold their hands again. You guys will hold hands, this time both hands, and just sitting with each other. So this kind of on face, this is what babies do. They do this to bond and to recognize their caregivers. So we're creating a really secure bond here. This is that eye contact that not everybody's really comfortable with. But here you're just holding space for one another. You're really listening to each other. And now it's time to regulate. So you did a lot of validating. I heard that you're feeling this. I heard that this is not good. I heard that you wish you had done that. And now it's time to just eye gaze. And as your hands release, maybe sweat is happening. Maybe heat is just pouring out. Maybe you've wiped away some tears. And now you're just gazing deep into each other's eyes. Noticing how you can regulate your younger self with this eye gaze. And at some point, this feeling of compassion will start flooding. And now that we've gone through the I wish I had, I wish this had happened, now it's time to reframe it and say, it's not your fault. You didn't deserve that. And maybe there are other phrases that go with your situation better, but you're basically saying, if there was something to take blame for, validly, firmly, logically, then you accepted the blame. But whatever else is going on, the I wish I hads are no longer valid because they're not healing the present. So now we're going to release that and say, I forgive you. Now the I forgive you might come from the younger version. She, he, them might be telling you, I forgive you. You didn't know any better. You didn't know how to do better. You didn't know what to do. You weren't being listened to. You weren't protected. There's so many things that have happened, right? And now it's time for the younger version to show you compassion. So let this mirroring, this reflection just happen naturally. It's a dance that might happen during this meditation or even continue afterwards as you learn how to release the blame and the shame and come into this glory of releasing it to God. So that's the other thing we'll work on here too. If you're feeling resistance again, you'll take that deep breath, you'll squeeze each other's hands and you say, God, thank you for helping us come to a place of compassion and healing. God, thank you for helping us to feel whole again. And in this way, we're incorporating that you are two, in this case, but one. And that ultimately, God will give you the forgiveness even when you're feeling stuck. Now in this meditation, I want you to look down at your hearts, both of you, both versions of you, to look down right to the chest. And you're going to notice that a big flower has started to bloom. I want you to look at what color it is, how big it is, what's the shape of it. Is it taking over your whole torso? Is it just in one spot? Just notice that's happening, and it's happening every time you accept, I forgive, I am forgiven, I am forgiven. And this flower grows. And I just want you to pause there in that beauty of that, feeling the growth happen. And now you'll reflect back to your younger version, and the younger version will reflect back to you. You're holding hands again, but this time really eye-gazing deeply, and I'm going to read something to you. There are many ways that I have hurt and harmed myself. I have betrayed or abandoned myself many times through thought, word, or deed, knowingly or unknowingly. And in this breath, you'll feel your own precious body and life. Can you let yourself see the ways that you have hurt or harmed yourself? Picture them, remember them. Feel the sorrow that you have carried from this and sense that you can release these burdens. Extend forgiveness for each of them one by one. And then repeat to yourself, for the ways I have hurt myself through action or inaction, out of fear, pain, and confusion, I now extend a full and heartfelt forgiveness. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. And just keep repeating, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. And you might notice that you're saying it in unison with your other self. And now you can really feel God's light coming down onto both of you. The acknowledgement of pain and